Hello, everyone. Just realized as I started recording this that people might actually want to see what I have on the shelf directly behind me. You know, the shelf that my head is largely blocking the view of. So let me step aside. I have the Zargon screen from Hero Quest and some huge size D&D minis from 3E, 4E, and 5E. So we got a Air Elemental, Earth Titan. I think a Titan should be bigger than that, but that's what the mini's called. Enormous Carrion Crawler, Rock, Aspect of Bahamut, and Goristro. Okay, I'll try to remember to show those off again some other time when I switch it around. So I've played a lot of D&D and other tabletop role-playing games for many years, and I'm usually the game master and designer, sometimes as a player, and I've been running this channel for many years about role-playing games and storytelling, adventures. I love all of this stuff. It's a huge passion of mine. But believe it or not, my first several D&D related experiences were a bit of a disaster. They were not great. So I'll tell you some of these anecdotes, these little stories as I walk through things. I think you're going to get a better, fuller picture of things. And I think that there is a greater point at the center of all this. There's a meaning of this strange, rocky trajectory at its heart. So when I was a kid, kid, like in the 80s and the early 90s, I played a lot of D&D inspired games. Like I loved Dragon Warrior on the NES and Hero Quest and the Lone Wolf solo RPG books. Then as I started getting into my teens, I tried some other tabletop role-playing games, things like the original Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, the White Wolf original vampire and werewolf books, a little bit of Wraith. Earthdawn. Does anyone remember Earthdawn? There's some other RPG in there that's slipping my mind at the moment. In 95, I got heavily into Magic the Gathering, played that heavily for many, many years. Actually, it was just a couple years ago that I finally couldn't take it anymore. Curiously, Magic the Gathering is not a topic I've ever gotten into on my channel, even though I've played that game so much. I also created a number of tabletop RPGs of my own. Some of them were extremely rules light. Others were on the total opposite end of that spectrum that were completely dependent on the rules. You basically just played the mechanics of the game. My first game ever was in 1990, second grade, called Mighty West. Must have been a lot of mites out there in that mighty West. Stock up on Dynamite and Medichin so you can fight off the Sharoofs and Indanes and Robers and make sure to dodge those lakes. But when it comes to actual Dungeons and Dragons, my first number of experiences really were not great. The first time that I ever laid eyes upon actual D&D was sometime in the early 90s. I was at an antique store with my mom and my grandma, and I came across this D&D thing. It was some kind of box set, and there was a book, and then there were like miniatures and some kind of scenario or module. I can't tell you what it was, but it was old school, and it looked really cool, and I really wanted to get that D&D set. And my grandma looked at my mom and said, "That's that game where some of the players committed suicide." And that was it. Satanic panic ruined the moment, and my mom said no. So my first memory of this game is, what's up with this game? That there's a controversy or something doomful about it, and there are these strong opinions that the adults have where kids shouldn't be playing it. Very weird, very disappointing, though in a way kind of curiosity provoking. After that, I remember looking at D&D books in bookstores and in game stores. And I think that's actually what got me into Earthdawn, is because my mom wouldn't let me play D&D. So she took me to like a comic book store and asked the guy working there or the owner if there was a different role-playing game that didn't have this kind of dreadfulness associated with it. And he said, "Hey, here's this game Earthdawn, and it should be fine." So my mom got me Earthdawn. But I remember looking at D&D books in stores. I remember being very intrigued by them and seeing titles like Monstrous Manual and the Complete Thief's Handbook. I also remember seeing that there was lots of text in these books. Text upon text upon text, columns of text, walls of text, words and words and words. And that really put me off. And a part of that was just because I was young. I did read books, like novels at the time, and I loved reading books. But I don't think my mind could quite comprehend that there was this middle ground between books that I liked and like video games and Magic the Gathering and Hero Quest. I would say that verbosity and walls of text put me off and kind of repelled me from going further and actually learning D&D and figuring out what it was all about. One evening in 1999, I went over to my friend Tracy's house. Now, this was a really cool hangout house. Usually I went over there to jam. I was really kind of a rocker / industrial or goth type guy. So I was used to going to Tracy's with my Fender and my amp and jamming out with those guys. But when I got there, no one was jamming. There was a group gathered around the table in the basement making Dungeons and Dragons characters. They were making these 2E characters. And I was really excited about that. Finally, I was going to get to play D&D, this game that I'd been curious about for quite a while now. So I sat down, asked for a character sheet, and they said I couldn't play. They said, "Sorry, man, our party is full. We can't take any more players." What? What kind of game is this that there's a limited number of players and I have to get excluded? So I stayed off to the side with my guitar, jamming, enjoying myself as I could, while they sat poring over these books and papers and pencils, creating characters and trying to figure out the rules of how to play this game. They spent all evening doing that. They never actually played the game. What the hell kind of game is this that you have to spend hours and hours just making a character and trying to figure out the game, and then you don't even end up playing it? Ugh! I was shocked when I got Hero Quest, and I realized that I had to spend about an hour or so reading over the rules so that I could run it for my brothers. I wanted to just jump in and play the game, but all evening, just making characters and getting confused by these verbose rule books and excluding one of your friends because you already have enough people, and then you don't even end up playing the damn game? A number of months after that, so now we're in mid to late 2000, I want to say, I had a coworker who was a DM, and he DM'd a lot. He was always talking about how he was playing Dungeons and Dragons, and his wife and her friend or sister, or he had this home group, and they were always playing D&D. They were playing it like almost every night. And I said, "That's so cool, man. Like, I want to play D&D. I've been wanting to play this for a while." So he brought some of the rule books up to our workplace, and we got together before the shift, and he helped me build a character. This was a 2nd edition thief. He explained a few things. I kind of got it, but kind of didn't. And then we had our work shift. It wasn't a long one, maybe a 4 or 5 hour shift. And work was over, and I said, "All right, cool. I'm gonna, grab some food, and what's the address? Where's your house?" "Oh, well, I'm not really ready to play tonight, but let's see, probably tomorrow night." Okay. Tomorrow night came. Same thing. He had some kind of excuse and we didn't actually get to play. Then the following night, another excuse. And you get the idea. After a while, I just stopped asking him. He didn't invite me. I never got to play the freaking game. What is it about this game that is so complicated, that's such a chore, that we can't just get together and hang out and play? Aha, but my luck was about to change. A little bit after that, in like the fall of 2000, it's not winter yet in my memory, but I'm wearing a hoodie. A neighbor of mine invited me over to play D&D at his place. His buddy John was a DM and another friend was going to be there, and they had the brand new edition. 3E had just came out. They were really excited. So I went over to my friend's house. Finally, I was going to get to play D&D. So I got there. I'd never played D&D before. I didn't know much about it. It was a brand new edition. So they were going to largely create the character, and I just would give out the concepts. They asked me what kind of character I wanted to play. Well, I wanted to play an elf wizard. And while they were building out my character sheet, I was sketching. I drew this weapon that my elf wizard was going to wield. It was this elaborate, exotic chain weapon with this strange, like multi-flanged, bladed, spiked piece at the end. They spent a while filling out my character sheet. I spent a while building this weapon. And then I showed the DM and I said, "This is the weapon that I use." And he said, "Well, wizards aren't proficient with that, so you can't use it." Okay, but I just spent all the time drawing this and I really want to use this for my character. Isn't there some option where I can use it at least a little bit? The DM told me something, I think just to placate me, sort of a "sure thing, Sonny, sure thing." And they said I could have the weapon, but it was probably sort of like when you hand the Nintendo controller to your little brother, but it's not actually plugged in. "Yeah, you're playing Nintendo, buddy. Yeah." But finally the game started. Oh, I'm actually playing D&D and I immerse into this fantasy world of adventure. And we go into the dungeon, some sort of dark tomb, and there's danger around every corner. And we get into our first combat encounter against a dreadful mummy that appears from the shadows. And I cast Sleep on the mummy. I knew the spell Sleep from Dragon Warrior. It was a fantastic spell. I was going to put that mummy to sleep, and then we were going to pummel the thing into dust. And the DM said, "It doesn't work. Undead are immune to sleep." Huh? Immune? There are monsters, like non-boss monsters, that I can't use my spell on? Wait a minute, wouldn't my wizard know that sleep doesn't work on a mummy? I mean, he has researched and learned the spell, and I think presumably I would have the player's handbook in front of me that would tell me that. Sorry, you already said it, and it just doesn't work. The mummy nearly destroyed us. We didn't die, but it was like that close. In a way, it was frustrating for me, but in another way, it was really thrilling. Like, wow, this game has danger to it. As the session went on, there were a number of other moments like that your sleep spell doesn't work moment. A lot of the time, the DM seemed to be preying upon the fact that I didn't really know what I was doing in the game. No one was really explaining things to me or saying, like, well, your character would be aware of such and such things. There was always these moments where the DM was kind of pulling a "ha, gotcha" on me. But we made it through the session. Despite the issues, I still wanted to play this game. There was something calling to me, saying that there was greatness, a potential to be tapped into. Next week, I went back to the friend's house for the second session. Our characters made it out of that dungeon and we went back to the town. We were speaking with the Baron or some kind of local authority figure who was telling us about the next mission, the next delve. Another one of the players in the group started annoying the DM. He was pestering the DM with little nitpicky questions and annoying requests, and his character was kind of screwing around. It's hard for me to remember. I was hazy for some reason, as though a cloud had come over my mind. But I remember distinctly this other player was having his character screw around in the town. The DM got really annoyed with his annoying mucking around, and he rage quit just in the middle of the session, slapped his book shut. "That's it, I'm done," stormed out. So that was a bit of a shock. Now, I had heard the Dungeons & Dragons Dead Alewives skit on the Dr. Demento radio show. That's what I thought of. Nerds fighting with each other over really, really nerdy stuff. Wow, that's actually a thing. I had lived what the Dead Alewives were parodying in their skit. What a weird game. I just want to play. What's up with all of these problems? Can't we just get swept away into a world of adventure and myth and wonder and just enjoy? That's what I'd always done with all of my friends in my various games and just our childhood make-believe adventures. You just do it. You just follow that call to adventure, the same as wandering around in the woods using sticks for swords. So that campaign ended after 1.5 sessions. I kept looking at D&D books at stores. I particularly was fascinated at looking at the 3rd edition monster manuals at the bookstores. And a couple years went by, and I did not cease to be fascinated by these strange creatures and the bits of lore about them. The game mechanics and rules still were very cryptic to me. I don't know why, I just didn't actually take the time to read through the rules section. But there was something inspiring about perusing and beholding these mysterious and fantastical tomes. I know why I didn't actually read through the rules sections and take the time to just learn the games properly on my own. It's because I had already created a tabletop role-playing game called Legendscape. So we're in 2003 now. Why go read these overly verbose books that are cryptic and strange and there's all these weird problems with the game? We're already playing Legendscape at my house, and it's a lot of fun. Basically what I did was I took HeroQuest and I modded it and then modded it, and I modded it so much that it essentially evolved into its own game. It was more complex. There were different races and classes to build your characters. The characters leveled up. It was fully an RPG. My friends loved it. My gaming group had a lot of fun playing Legendscape. We played it twice a week. We played a campaign for many, many months and went all the way through the entire campaign to the victorious conclusion. and we were hungry for more. Then on a fateful day in 2004, I met a guy at a bookstore while I was looking at the D&D books, and he was a DM. And he invited me to come play some D&D. He was going to start a new campaign, and I was very happy to do so. Looking back, I'm not quite sure why he invited me. I was a stranger whom he'd just met. I guess he just liked me a lot. He was also a military guy. There's an Air Force base here in my city of Wichita, Kansas. And he had 2 other Air Force buddies that were going to be playing in the campaign, and I think he just didn't have anyone else to play with. So he invited me. We got together before the actual first session so he could help me build my character. And he actually took the time to really explain what those bits of the character sheet mean, how things function, and I made a monk. And I was already starting to get a grip on the rules. This was the first time anyone had actually explained how to play this game and what all the different jargon means. So yeah, I probably could have learned all those things on my own from reading the books, maybe looking at some internet forums, but really person to person, handing the game down, that is the best way to learn. Having someone there with you and you just play the game and you pick it up and you learn as you go. So we got the campaign started. This was DM Lee. Lee, if somehow you stumble upon this video and watch it, hello and thank you. So Lee got the campaign started and we played our first session, and there was my monk along with a sorcerer and a ranger, I think a ranger fighter multi-class. And we went down this path in a forest and there were kobolds that attacked us. And we went down into this pit. It was sort of like a strange tomb, and we fought this really, really powerful skeletal serpent thing, and it was about ready to kill us. And then the one character found this special dagger that was down there and stabbed it with the dagger, and then the whole thing just kind of fell apart, as in the skeleton monster fell apart, and we didn't die. And we got out of the pit, and we came across this kobold druid, and we were able to role play and convince him to cast Cure Wounds on us. And then we went on to what? Oh, that's the end of the session. And actually, after that, the campaign, still in its infancy, just fizzled out. We never got to play those characters again. But I felt inspired just by learning the basic rules of D&D and starting to read the books and know what I was actually reading. A whole new inspiration came into me. It was like a volcano of inspiration was erupting inside of me. And I began iterating on Legendscape, making version after version of it. Eventually, I had incorporated so much D&D mechanics that I said, I need to just make my own mod of 3.5 D&D. That will be Legendscape. Now, throughout those various iterations, we did play them. We actually played a couple decently long campaigns. One went all the way through. Another that I remember just lasted kind of a few months, but it was in a sort of janky way, heading somewhere better, heading to the next level. So as these iterations of Legendscape are going on, and I'm gravitating more and more towards, I just need to make a homebrew setting for 3.5 D&D, that same prior DM Lee, said, okay, I want to start a new campaign, get some of your friends together, and just the one friend from that failed attempt of campaign, he's going to join it. We'll be able to play more regularly. And I was in. I was really stoked. So I made an elf druid named Vesic and a wolf animal companion. That campaign got started, and we actually played somewhat regularly. Finally, I was in a weekly or every other week D&D campaign that was somewhat lasting. It wasn't super stable, but it was stable enough. It was also brutally difficult. I'm not quite sure why Lee enjoyed that style so much, but it was really, really hard. He modded all the monsters and enemy NPCs and made them much stronger and used all these obscure splat books and dungeon magazine issues. And we didn't really have a lot to go off of in terms of what could we do to mitigate or outwit the brutality. I distinctly remember one session, I looked at my character sheet and I had all these skills that I had taken the time to fill in all these skill points. And I asked Lee, I have all these skills, but I almost never use them. Shouldn't there be something I can do with these skills to give us some advantages or some way to better take on these challenges? His response was, well, I don't usually use the skills a lot in my games. I more just focus on straight combat. But if you can think of some way to use a skill, just ask me and I'll let you know if it works or not. So something about that kind of struck me a little bit weird. Like, why are we not using this whole portion of the game? It seems like that would give a more in-depth experience, and maybe give us a little help in these encounters that are just damn near wiping us out every single fight that we have. There was also a moment in one session where the GM allowed a PvP scene with another one of the players, who is my friend Michael. Now, my understanding of this PvP thing was more just like a competitive arena where we weren't trying to actually permanently kill each other. Oh no, that's not what Michael had in mind. I think he had some kind of personal problem, and he was taking it out on me. It was a bit sadistic because his cleric was legitimately trying to kill my druid. Now, I'm not remembering entirely how my druid got killed, if it was from that PvP fight or if it was from an encounter that we got into just shortly after that. But around then, my druid got killed, and then I came back as this ghost thing, but I had this heart-shaped or fist-shaped stone at the center of my ghostly form that I relied on that, so I couldn't actually phase through walls. I don't know, things got really wonky, and then the campaign just fizzled out. There wasn't any satisfying conclusion. There was no resolution. We didn't even wrap up any specific arc or like adventure chapter that we were in. It's like you're watching a movie and someone pauses it 45 minutes in, and you just never get to watch it ever again. But despite all of the problems and all the frustrations, I still really enjoyed certain aspects of D&D. I saw this potential for greatness in there. And so I created Legendscape version 6. This was 3.5 D&D. It was a modded, homebrewed, house-ruled 3.5 D&D. It's sort of similar to what Pathfinder did. The game was 3.5 D&D, just with these modifications all over the place and a bunch of new content in there. And you know what? Me and my friends loved it. It was amazing. And we played through campaign after campaign. And I've just kept going. It's all grown and grown to this very day. It's still going. I'm still creating. I'm still adventuring, and I'm adventuring with you all now. When you think about it, you have to deal with all kinds of different challenges just to play tabletop RPGs. There are problems with players, problem with GMs, endless tinkering and house rules and homebrew, and then there's the non-stop changes to the official game. So that brings on addition wars, and you have to sacrifice your precious money and your even more precious time, and you have to risk, making a fool out of yourself in a social setting. There's all these hurdles that you have to jump over, all these sacrifices that have to be made. But there is nothing like crossing over into that mythic world of adventure and becoming someone wondrous for a time. Now, I do think if people could get their act together better, there wouldn't be so many problems surrounding RPGs, but that's a different topic. I'll maybe get into that in another video. What I'm really thinking about here is all of the challenges and all the sacrifices are more than worth it. You see, the struggles that are within the individual human heart, they get expressed in creative ways through RPGs. They get expressed through the heroes and the monsters and the dungeons and the fantastical lands that you adventure into. In life, there are many problems that are very difficult to solve. And some problems you can't do anything about. So it's amazing to play things out in an imaginative world in which you can face down the terrors and the challenges, no matter what they are, even horrible, horrible big things, and actually do something about them. You can slay the monsters and the bad guys, or you can outwit them, or you can transform them. Or if it gets really bad, you might be able to run away, formulate a new plan, and try a new angle of approach. There's a sense of agency. There's a sense of capability. There's a sense of hope. And at the very least, you're having a good time with some friends. And there's one other thing that I think is really worth saying, another big takeaway from all of this, from all the problems I've had with D&D for years. That's to keep going, and not just keep going in the sense of stupidly bumbling along, but if things are not working out well, you can make something better happen. You can start a new gaming group. You can go meet new friends, possibly people that you'll get along with better. You can learn the rules better. It's never been a better time in the history of, well, ever, to learn anything. Hi, I'm one of those people that help others learn about role-playing games, how to play them, and how to hopefully make your game great. You can be the one to say, hey, I'm going to try to run a better campaign. I'm going to try to do something about these issues that have plagued my previous attempts. The thing that you wish existed in your life, you have the ability to make that come true. You can at least give it a shot and get a little bit closer. You can make it happen. It won't be perfect. You'll make a lot of mistakes along the way, but the whole time, it's going to be great. It might even be awesome, because what is really motivating actually is not watching some famous expert game master running a high production celebrity game. What's really motivating is seeing yourself move ever closer toward your own goal. Your own incremental improvement is a glorious wave to ride on. Your own journey toward a great destination is wind in your sails. The last thing that I want to mention here that broadly relates to all this that I've been talking about is I actually have a D&D community campaign called Myriad Legends. You're welcome to come and check it out. You can come and meet people and play D&D, actually get to play and learn and improve as a player and as a GM and take part in this campaign where there's a bunch of people that actually really care about great adventures. Lots of GMs, lots of players, all in a shared living world. My campaign setting of Ikoros that you probably know from my channel. We keep out the trolls, we vet the GMs, and the whole thing's free. The link to join is down in the video description and also in the pinned comment, and I really encourage you to come check it out. We would like to meet you. Thank you everyone for everything. I look forward to seeing you in another video sometime soon. May your adventures be many.